In today's episode of the Giraldo Show, we're going to be discussing the Iranian protests that are going on. Students all over Iran are protesting the government, and Greta Thunberg snapping over some demands that she wants to be done right now. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you are listening to the Giraldo Show. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Giraldo Show. I am your host, Sebastian Giraldo. Start of a brand new week means start of a brand new week of the Giraldo Show podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. I appreciate every single one of my fans. The road to 1,000 downloads total is looking pretty open right now. So let's go ahead and get to that goal. I want to try to get it before my 6-month anniversary on February 18th. So if you could please share it with your friends, share it with anyone that you think would support a podcast, a conservative podcast from a young 18-year-old in the middle of Atlanta. So if you think anyone would like to listen to that, make sure to share it with them. Make sure to give the episodes a like, give them reviews on Apple Podcasts so that we can go ahead and spread this podcast even more. But once again, thank you very much to all of my fans. So in today's episode, we're going to be discussing Iran and Greta Thunberg. I know those are topics that are coming up kind of recently, more Iran than Greta Thunberg. So I guess we'll start with what Greta is saying. So according to the Daily Wire, far-left climate extremist Greta Thunberg demanded in a new op-ed that world leaders cave to her anti-capitalist agenda right now as they prepare to meet in Davos for the 50th anniversary of the World Economic Forum. Thunberg wrote in the op-ed in The Guardian, "We demand that at this year's forum, participants from all companies, banks, institutions, and governments immediately halt all investments in fossil fuel exploration and extraction, immediately end all fossil fuel subsidies, and immediately and completely divest from fossil fuels. We don't want these done by 2050, 2030, or even 2021. We want this done as in right now." A couple of things to unpack there. For Greta, do you understand how many people you would be destroying their lives because of that? At least in the United States, you'd be destroying millions of jobs that are in the fossil fuel industry. You'd also be destroying world economies because most nations in the world depend on fossil fuels to run their country. Not every country is like Sweden or like the United States where we have the benefits of having windmills and turbines and wherever you want to call them, where we can have dams, we can have all these different types of ways to get energy. If you want to solve this issue, we're going to have to work together so that we don't destroy other countries completely, their economies completely, and just their way of life completely because you want them to stop fossil fuels, fossil fuel subsidies, fossil fuel investments, just stopping fossil fuels in general. Thunberg continued by saying, "To some it may seem like we are asking for a lot, but this is just the very minimum of effort needed to start the rapid, sustainable transition. The fact that this still in 2020 hasn't been done already is quite frankly a disgrace." Okay, Greta, you're arguing with the wrong people. The United States has made a lot of strides. I've done a previous episode on this on how much I think the United States as a whole has reduced more carbon emissions since I think 2010, since the entirety of the European Union. That's a pretty substantial amount. In the meantime, China and India's carbon emissions have increased by over 100%. So I think maybe if you want to start arguing about who could be causing this whole climate change crisis that you so-called preach, Greta, maybe start looking into China and India. But no, it's not China and India's fault. It's the United States, which contributes around 1% of all the trash in the oceans, which reduces carbon emissions, which constantly researches cleaner energy. It's all the United States' fault. Completely all that fault. Maybe that's why you should be in school, Greta. Maybe if you would be in school, you would learn that the United States has made this many strides in trying to be more sustainable, better for the world and better for the environment. Thunberg claimed, saying, "Anything less than immediately ceasing these advancements in the fossil fuel industry would be a betrayal of life itself. Today's business as usual is turning into a crime against humanity." Back in November, Greta Thunberg wrote in an op-ed which she attacked capitalism, claiming that politicians let the profiteers continue to exploit our planet's resources and destroy its ecosystems in a quest for quick cash that threatens our very existence. That's weird. I didn't know that China ran a capitalistic system. I thought they were all about socialism and communism. I guess China must be capitalist at this point because obviously it's capitalism's fault that this climate is changing so rapidly, if it really is. Thunberg said that action must be powerful and wide-ranging. After all, the climate crisis is not just about the environment. It is a crisis of human rights, of justice, and of political will. Colonial, racist, and patriarchal systems of oppression have created and fueled it. We need to dismantle them all. Our political leaders can no longer shirk at their responsibilities. Again, climates change all the time, Greta. It's been, and for everyone who's a climate change that the world's going to end in 10 years if we don't do something. Climates change. It was pretty basically as hot as it was 1,000 years ago, and guess what? We didn't die 1,000 years ago. All of these complete Al Gore, for example, saying that the polar bears would be extinct, and I think polar bear, while they are low, I think they have gone up in population. The Australia situation, for example, was a huge deal. People were saying it's all about climate change. It turns out that over 100 arsonists were people who set fire to the Australian forests, and they are in jail now. So the justice system works in Australia, and it also works in the United States, for those who think that the Australian system is a lot better. But anyway, this entire climate crisis, look, can the climate be changing? Of course the climate can be changing, as it does. The climate has been changing for billions and billions of years, when we've had ice ages and we've had times when our Earth was so hot that no life could be sustained on it. Could it be man-made? It could very well be man-made. Could it be the number one problem? It could very well be. However, the science on this is so divided that you can't really come to a conclusion. Do I think the world is going to end in 10 years if we don't change anything right now? No, I do not think that. I think that's a very overstated, hyperbolic statement that's being made there. Now, is it important to take care of our planet? Of course it's important to take care of our planet. You can do whatever you want to improve your lifestyle have a less of a carbon footprint, as people might say. However, to say that the world's going to end in 10 years and all you're doing to change is protesting and standing in the streets where cars are trying to get to work, you're not going to solve anything. You're doing the opposite of it. You're letting those cars idle in the streets, meaning more carbon and more gases being exploited into the air. Just let them go to work. Find different ways to save the planet, as a lot of people are saying. Propose bills. Do anything but do useless protests at a football game like there was at the Harvard-Yale game. What is that going? I understand you want to get the message out, but millions and millions of people are getting their message out on Twitter every single day. Propose something. Do something that could actually help the planet. Propose a bill. Do anything. Mr. Beast, for example. For those who don't know, Mr. Beast is a huge YouTuber. He and Mark Rober, who's another fantastic YouTuber, I suggest you check out both their channels. They both started a campaign to plant 20 million trees by 2020, and guess what? They raised over $20 million. $1, one tree is going to be planted. I think they raised $23 million. So those are things that can be done to help the environment if that's what you really are after. Protesting in the streets and protesting at football games is not going to get you very far. Let's go ahead and move on from this whole climate thing and go on to the actual real story, the big story, the Iranian protesters who are refusing to walk on U.S.-Israeli flags and who are attacking Soleimani posters. So obviously Iran has been in the news recently because of all of the attacks, the missile attacks, the supposed World War III that Trump's about to start, even though he's not attacking Iran, only posing economic sanctions as a deterrent for Iranian attacks. And we actually had a statement from an Iranian ambassador saying it's been working. Like, the United States has had us, basically what the Iranian ambassador said, knife at the throat. Like, the U.S. is pressuring Iran. It's like, if they don't calm down, their economy will probably implode on itself. So let's go ahead and talk about the Iranian protesters. Stunning images and photos emerged on Sunday from the protests inside Iran, showing demonstrators attacking images of former Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani, while also refusing to walk on American and Israeli flags. It's odd how a lot of countries love America more than some Americans in this country. It just baffles me. We live in the most prosperous and the most generous, in the best country in the entire world, and there are people in this country that hate being in this country, while people in Hong Kong, for example, are fighting to get the same freedoms that we're getting. Talk about being so spoiled that you don't understand what benefits you have in comparison to the other world. Go to Hong Kong and try to do your free speech thing, and you'll probably get arrested. That's what's happening in Hong Kong still. The latest round of protests come after Iran admitted that it shot down a Ukrainian passenger plane last week, which killed all 176 people on board, after falsely claiming for several days that they were not responsible for what happened. First of all, rest in peace for every single person on that passenger plane. Horrible thing that happened. Iran, how can you claim this was an accident? I mean, I understand your technology might be a little bit farther behind what American technology is, But still, like, first of all, denying that it happened for several days, denying that you were responsible for it, it doesn't look good when you finally admit a couple days later that you were actually responsible for it. It doesn't really go off well on the resume for Iran. BBC reporter Ali Hamadani tweeted a video that showed student protesters refusing to walk on a giant American and Israeli flag that were painted on the ground, writing, "At the height of the Iranian establishment anti-Americanism, Tehran and Beheshti University students refused walking over the U.S. and Israel flags while participating in #Iran protest. They all grew up to hate the two countries, but it seems like the revolutionary ideology failed." And I would include clips of the videos, like the sound, but it would just be the sound. I might consider retweeting these videos on my Twitter account at Giraldo Show for those who want to give that a quick follow. Masih Al-Nijad, I apologize if I mispronounced that, an Iranian journalist tweeted, "Watch how Iranian students refuse to step on American and the flag of Israel. This should embarrass Iranian regime and their propaganda funeral for #Soleimani, where people were told to chant death to America, not people in Iran chanting death to Islamic Republic dictatorship." And then people are obviously protesting Soleimani. They're kicking down posters that they have of him kicking in his face, kind of just showing the attempted indoctrination in Iran to have the people there hate America, when in reality it's not really working as well as they thought. Before Soleimani's funeral, Al-Nijad wrote in the Washington Post, "But what to make of the crowds of flag-waving mourners streaming across TV screens? Without a doubt, Soleimani had support among hardliners and regime loyalists. The regime is not taking any chances, though. In the city of Aves, where a large number of people turned out to mourn Soleimani, the government has forced students and officials to attend. It provided free transport and ordered shops to shut down. According to the videos sent by me by people inside the country, the authorities are making little kids write essays praising the fallen commander. First graders who didn't know how to write were encouraged to cry for Soleimani. Some Iranians have compared the funeral services for Soleimani to those held for the Nazi leader Reinhard Heydrich, the butcher of Prague, killed by Allied agents during World War II. Again, this is one of the things that Americans seem to take advantage, the fact of free speech. People in this country now want to ban hate speech, which again, it's protected. Hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. Hate speech is free speech. There is speech that is hateful. But to literally being forced to go to a funeral, that's something that you will never see in the United States, and I pray to God that we will never have to have that. We have the freedom to make our own choices in the United States, and in Iran, you don't have that freedom. You don't have that choice because the choice has already been made for you. And then multiple leaders in this country, if you want to even call them leaders, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, have tweeted support of Iran, basically saying, again, anti-Trump stuff. How dare Trump send an attack against a huge terrorist in the United States? How dare he? Journalist Yashar Ali, whose family is from Iran, noted how leftists suddenly quit caring about what was going on in Iran since they can't use the protest to attack President Donald Trump, not that the demonstrators were protesting on different issues. Ali wrote, or he tweeted out, "I've gone through some of the most active and prominent liberal Twitter accounts, and none of them mentioned the Iran protest today. These same people were actively tweeting about wanting to avoid war and attacking Trump for his decision. What happened? In this context, Iranians are being used by certain people on the left, I didn't say all, as a tool to attack President Trump. But these same people don't seem to care to support their right to protest. It seems to me the protests were inconvenient for some of these folks today. They were placing the blame on the Iranian leadership who lied repeatedly about what happened. They weren't blaming President Trump, so it wasn't worth it to bring attention to or support them." Interesting. Again, it's this entire anti-Trump media that we're living in. If it's not anti-Trump, you're not going to report it. If it doesn't fit a very specific narrative that the leftist and Democrat media are looking for, they're not going to mention it. It's going to be a 5-minute news story that's going to be gone. How many weeks did the Parkland shooter story happen? Because, it was a horrible event. A lot of weeks. How many weeks did the Jack Wilson story in Texas where a good guy shot down a bad guy with a gun in church? I don't watch TV news, but I'm going to guess it's not that much. I know conservative Twitter activists still tweet out about Jack Wilson, and God bless him because he's an amazing man saving so many lives in that church. But mainstream media, I highly doubt that they are still continuing on with the Jack Wilson story. Some of them might even still be talking about Parkland and how we should implement gun control. But that was just my 2 cents of the day based on the Greta Thunberg story and the Iranian protesters. God bless the Iranian protesters for trying to make their country a better place by trying to implement more American policies, because America, again, is the greatest country in the world, and we will continue to be the greatest country in the world as long as we have the freedom to do free things, I guess you could say. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll go ahead and I'll see you on Tuesday. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you're listening to The Giraldo Show.